Son of bitch. We don't like talking about Erik Larsen on this channel, and he seems to be coming up of late. And guys, we are a 90s comic book channel, and this week for WildStorm Wednesday, we have to discuss Erik Larsen, choreographer at large, drawing WildCATS, drawing, writing, inking WildCATS, issue 14 for Image X Over Month, which might be the worst intercompany crossover in comic book history because it literally derailed every single book but Spawn. Spawn's the only one that kind of got through Image X Month unscathed because, you know, he had the amazing Mark Silvestri to work with. Everyone else literally got the short end of the stick. I think Jim Valentino got a little bit of a gift with the Rob Liefeld Shadowhawk Sin City inspired book. But let's get into it. We have to hit the drawing table. Let's go, guys. Cheers, aka Patters. Get yourself some of that Eiffel Tower coffee cough. Welcome to Image X Month. And as you can tell, we're ready to jump right into it. So I want to show you guys a little trick. How do we determine what Image X books are good? Because it's such a loaded question. They're good for who the creators match up with. So if you're not familiar with Image X Month, so we would get like Todd McFarlane, and Todd McFarlane would go over here and draw Cyberforce, and Mark Silvestri of Cyberforce would come over here and draw Spawn. So we would get Rob Liefeld's Young Blood, drawn by Jim Valentino, and Rob Liefeld would draw Shadowhawk. And then over here, Erik Larsen, Savage Dragon, shoots all the way over to WildCATS. He writes and draws WildCATS, and Jim Lee and crew come over to Savage Dragon, and you guessed it, produce a Savage Dragon issue. These issues are numbered in continuity. They're not one-shots. They're not specials. There's a lot of really bad commentary on like which ones to read, which ones you don't. The fun part of this, and we're all the way back in September 1994, is it was widely reported. A lot of outlets reported the wrong matchups. Only Image knew, and it seems like the guys knew last minute before they would actually have time to hit that drawing board right here and get to work. But here's the tiers. This is how we look at Image X Month. If we just separate right here, we make 3 columns, right? Okay. Here we have the good. Spawn, Shadowhawk, Cyberforce. Then we have the bad. Savage Dragon, WildCATS. And then the ugly. Young Blood. Now, these books look great. They're fantastic. They are of the shelves, meaning, you know, if you got something like Jim Lee's Savage Dragon here and you saw this on the comic shelf, it would match up with everything else produced of that era. Same with Rob Liefeld's Shadowhawk or Todd McFarlane's Cyberforce. Even today's topic, this is our focus. WildCATS 14. We have Mighty Man. He has beef. Well, Maul has beef with Mighty Man, but the two fight, and they actually fight in this issue. And this cover lives up to what happens inside this comic. Erik Larsen's good for that. We try not to cover a lot of Erik Larsen on this channel because we view him as a choreographer. And there's some warning signs in here because, and we're going to jump right to the last page. But I want to set some of this up a little bit more, so you guys understand the good, the bad, the ugly. We got some Fragaboom with some wonderful finishes on Young Blood over Jim Valentino. And speaking of finishes, there's a good chunk of Savage Dragon here. Savage Dragon, Jim Lee, and crew. Jim Lee pencils, but look at the finishes. Richard Bennett, Alex Garner, Dane Panozzi, and Scott Williams. Finishers are not pencilers, and pencilers are not finishers. If you're penciling, you don't need a finisher. Jim Lee, at best, is doing quick, loose layouts. He's planing out and flowing out the story. During the early days of Homage Studios, Jim Lee did this for Wells Portacio and whoever else was a penciler at that time. But Jim Lee later, learned how to refine, perfect his figures, got better with the comic book production process, became a penciler of his own. But we see a lot of, we also, guys, another poorly designed Jim Lee villain here. That makes maybe 5 of them, or maybe 4. It's bad. But, we get some nice Jim Lee-isms, some nice shots. Camera doesn't rotate as much with the Jim Lee paneling that we like. But, but this is what we want with Jim Lee. So we get it. And Jim Lee produces, him and WildStorm Productions, they produce a book that you could read. And it doesn't exactly flow with Savage Dragon 1 through 12 or that miniseries, but it fits. But Erik Larsen hated this so much that he made his own Savage Dragon 13. So there's 2 Savage Dragon 13s, which we have right here. Now, it's a little tough because we do have Savage Dragon number 10 somewhat queued up in here, but we have, these are WildCATS 13 pages, but they're rolled into the regular 13. And we get, some of his black and white stuff here. So this is his black and white for... So it's a little confusing, and you guys know I'm not a Erik Larsen. I can't speak of it. But this is around the area, and you could be like, Pete, what's really happening? Well, because we only know the issues from what's 1 through 21, and we have the covers here, but the interior, there's no covers on the interior. You read this as a phone book all the way through. So, but Larsen makes 2 Savage Dragon 13s. It's like a repudiation. He does nothing but kisses Jim Lee's butt here in the afterwards. And he basically says, oh my god, these costumes are so hard to draw. I give everything to Jim Lee. Jim Lee makes it look easy. Again, knowing Jim Lee was taking an extended vacation. We covered that on here. So Jim Lee, at this time, we coming out of the WildCATS miniseries and the WildCATS Cyberverse crossover, Killer Instinct, we get WildCATS 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, Grifter returns with 13, and then this is another big crossover with Chris Claremont's Huntsman, and they do 4 issues with Chris Claremont's Huntsman. And then at this point, Jim Lee is pretty much out of WildCATS. The run of Jim Lee ends with 13 here. And it is carried over on 14 because Erik Larsen wasn't a weirdo at this time. he was one of the comic book luminaries, but not a weirdo. I view this as a juvenile, pathetic effort, even of the time. What Erik Larsen was capable of as producing a page, it's not here. He phones this in, and he insinuates weird stuff. If you're curious about some of the other Image X over, attempts here or achievements, Rob Liefeld does his Frank Miller. And this is a great read. It's the classic Rob Liefeld and team. They break into a military base to get some blood because Shadowhawk here needs blood samples because he has AIDS. Good read. Cyberforce 8, Todd McFarlane, as featured on yesterday's Top Cow Tuesday. Giant mystery They focus on a few characters. Really cool villain. We get more character analysis, this time with Heatwave. We get McFarlane-isms. We get some of the Cyberforce story beats, because for here, Mark Silvestri did the plot and script. So they work closely to get this done. And in turn, Silvestri's Spawn is absolutely legit. That's probably pound for pound the best one. And number 2 would be like what your preference is for these two. We're not done yet. When we get into the ads here, this is great. We get Savage Dragon and Backlash. Backlash, we've been teasing on this channel a lot, guys. And I'm sorry, Image X Over Month is bumping another Backlash episode of ours. Next time we tried to do Backlash, it was Kindred. And then we just ended up just doing a WildStorm history, because the Kindred is more really focused on WildStorm history rather than Backlash and Grifter. But Backlash is really like the first breakout star of all of Image. And then with issue 2, they kind of continue the collaboration, and we have Savage Dragon here showing up in the pages of Backlash. Like really, really nice, like universe sharing stuff here. So the Image guys were kumbaya and they were friends, right? They freely use other people's properties. I mean, you see here, Backlash 2, guest starring. I mean, like, that's huge. Because for issue 2, this is your time to gain your hardcore audience. I don't want to profile too much of this issue, but the final page here, we have Maul, who is pretty much established as a ladies' man. But we get this weird Erik Larsen fantasy where people are like, you know, even at the time, there wasn't many butts hanging out on beaches. But he's got to draw everyone in the thong. Some of the girls are topless. You know, some nice, like, again, like character moments with Zealot, and Super Patriot. They're fighting. We have Warblade doing a Tarzan swing. And we get this conversation. Jeremy Stone, Maul. Listen, I'm sorry I attacked you. I was really stupid. That was a really stupid thing to do. Apology accepted. I'm sorry about Margot. Do you want to talk about it? You're kind of cute when you're not purple. I don't think so. I'm still not getting over seeing Margot again. And oh well. I mean, you can change into a guy, and it's just weird too. Oh, I guess it is what it is. I understand. Side poop. So the girl here is Mighty Man. I don't know how I forgot this. I guess, again, me not being more embedded in the lore of Savage Dragon. And I have those, I have these just to kind of flip through, because, you know, I do appreciate his pen work, but I don't read these. So, but Erik Larsen's got to go there. And, like, in a way, he's, like, from an editorial level, you're implicating character traits that just aren't there. And in a weird way, if this is really Mighty Man would not like be forward and infer a lot onto Maul, because Mighty Man is Erik Larsen's version of Superman. He's the Superman analog. It breaks. Now, it doesn't mean the scene couldn't happen with like a different, you know, like maybe with Lord Emp, which kind of fits because Emp's a weirdo. Here, how do you put up with these guys? How you put up with these guys is beyond me. Drinking helps. See, like, he fits more in this scene, but he's, again, like, there's just so many signs of this guy being an absolute weirdo. And I always said, you know, like, the progressivism in science fiction works. It works on a lot of levels. And we give Larsen credit for thinking outside the box, but it's in no way appropriate for him to bring that into someone else's book. Right? Like, and I know a lot of you might just think I am being crazy and high horse, but if we were editing, if we had an editorial mandate, right, like we would flip out about this. And we get some, like Erik Larsen does, we have a giant monster, they defeat the giant monster, we start the adventure with the end of yet another adventure. And like really cool void stuff here. Like, and the pink highlights, there's pink everywhere. Just really cool stuff. And Erik Larsen does draw these like rubble monsters very well. And some of it might not show up very well, because sometimes to see this, like, you kind of have to look at it like that. Chris, good lettering trick here by the great Chris Alipios. See he does the outer stroke, that's black, but the inner stroke is the true color. And then he has a gradient. So it's like outer stroke and inner stroke. And you get this like really cool effect. Not done a lot today. And then really, what's the plot? They're trying to go on vacation. On the television, they hear that Mighty Man injured this girl. Maul knows the girl. He gets upset. He transforms and does a Jack Kirby. I don't know why Maul is on a Jack Kirby sled. But whatever, because Void's over here. And Void can just teleport Maul. With all that said, Erik Larsen's got to jam every single one of his characters in this book. And, Mighty Man's at the bedside, just wishing that this girl gets better. And he's so regretful. This is what I mean about, like, this is who you are. This is a great character moment. It does not line up with the final panels of this book. And this is what I mean about Larsen just embarrassing himself, because he self-inserts his fantasies. But then they fight. Hey, paying off on the cover, guys. They fight. The WildCATS show up. WildCATS fight. And we get some good quips. Super Patriot here. Nice effort, T2. It's not enough. That does it. I hate when people call me that. Terminator 2, because Jim Lee was very vocal on watching Terminator 2 and getting the idea for Warblade. There's some good quips. There's some good back and forths. This page I absolutely love, because it's the good version of the quick Erik Larsen. Like, look at the Justin Timberlake curl, the folds, the piping, like almost like the rhythm of Grifter's Mask. And we haven't seen it like that, like this, up until this time. But we get some good stuff, but sometimes a quick drawing Erik Larsen, and that's what this is. We get panels like this that just kind of look muddy, but he does give us a Spartan with his eyeball hanging out. And then we get to the hospital, and Maul is just regretful. The girl is, she wakes up. And again, too, like, this dude's been through a lot. He literally fought Mighty Man because he's so connected to this girl. He's just connected, and Mighty Man's got to just, like, spoil it by, again, it's just, like, if I was Jim Lee and I got this, I would refuse to put it out. I really would. I would take off of my sabbatical, go back to the drawing table, and do what Larsen did. You don't like having a Jim Lee issue in your Savage Dragon run, so you're going to redraw it. Jim Lee should have just redrawn issue 14 or got Team WildStorm to get back. Jim Lee had enough money in his pocket to get someone high level in comics at this time to even guess pencil and redraw this and work with Brandon Chow and get a suitable one and done issue. But whatever, guys. Look, Jim Lee gives Erik Larsen something he can present and just be happy with. And Larsen just comes in and self-inserts fantasies into a book that at the time meant more to comics than Savage Dragon. It really did. WildCATS, even to this day, means more to comics than Savage Dragon. Yeah, so we're like playing with the formats here a little bit. I know this is coming after the drawing table. I think a lot of you liked it last time I did this, so we are just going with it. But AKAPADers, the Image X month it's a scale. We get 3 notable books. We get Todd McFarlane on Cyberforce. We get Rob Liefeld doing some decent work on Shadowhawk. And we get Jim Lee and WildStorm Productions all coming together for Savage Dragon. Jim Lee seems to be committed to his work on Savage Dragon, though, meaning I'm going to give you something. I'm going to give you a cover, which is posterable, by the way, that posterized cover. But I'm going to give you amazing things, Erik Larsen. I realize I'm about to go on a sabbatical. I've announced it. People have written about it already. It's already in the press. You know about it. We all know about it. But on my way out the door, I'm sorry, but this is the absolute best I can do. And when we look at his issue of Savage Dragon, we get that sense. And then we get into the Erik Larsen WildCATS, where it's oddly sexualized, it's uncomfortable, it's got a very weak plot. Some of the characterizations there, but not really. He's got some nice visual notes, but not enough. And we get this overall lazy approach. And Erik Larsen is a person, even to this day, he takes a lot of pride in being able to pencil, write, and ink and draw. And it doesn't mean Erik Larsen doesn't have accolades and things to admire, look at, learn from, and move on from. But seeing some of these seeds that later came to fruition in the pages of Savage Dragon, and him literally turning his book into an adult title, never marketed as an adult title, sold to whoever would buy it, and then kind of go into a sales hell because of it. And then later, he just wants to play it off as it was like some experiment and not him permanently tarnishing his character, Savage Dragon, which is something that from a fan, from us, we never wanted to see that, and we want to push back against it. For some reason, the Image guys, I'm talking Jim Valentino with Shadowhawk, I'm talking about Spawn, Tom McFarlane with Spawn, I'm even talking about Rob Liefeld with Youngblood and some of his other characters, Erik Larsen and Savage Dragon. We get this idea that these are non-legacy characters, that we want to move on from Al Simmons' Spawn, that we want to move on to Malcolm as Savage Dragon, that we want to move on into a new Shadowhawk. And the Image founders deconstructed their own titles within 3 to 4 years. Now, it took McFarlane almost 10, probably, I think it was like maybe issue around 175 that McFarlane started to transition away from Al Simmons as Spawn. And this is, I'm just befuddled by this, because we want legacy characters, because legacy characters mean continuity, and continuity means sales, and sales mean you're developing the absolute hardcore comic book audience that's not just good for you, your work, your titles, but the entire industry as a whole. This is a big concept everybody runs away from right now. But we get Erik Larsen, who champions himself as a historian, a traditionalist, a cartoonist. And he's maybe the best to ever do it, ever. I can certainly make that argument, even though I don't like talking about the guy. I can still sit on the sidelines and respect the work that guy rolls out. His mind might be corrupted. He might have mashed potato brains. He might, he quit Twitter when I think Donald Trump was elected president, or when Elon Musk bought Twitter, one of the two. But the guy is an absolute loon. He's not. It's not bad that he's like a progressive, because there's no policy in the world that can't benefit from a progressive angle, progressive slant, or all the good policies do incorporate some of progressivism, if we're going to discuss politics and policy real quick. But Erik Larsen, he is that, and that is his identity, and as a creator, it comes through on the pages, and that is what we wholeheartedly reject. He corrupted WildCATS here. He derailed all the work that Jim Lee was doing. If you're reading WildCATS month to month and going into that, we profiled it here. We go from in Trophy having a deep historical background to Lord Emp. We get deeper into what is the mythology of the orbs and how they're connected to Void. Emp leaves the team, and then the next issue we get this. If I was Jim Lee, I would have just not published this. I would have refused to publish this, and I know you can't do it because kumbaya. We all have to work together, which is also the problem of early Image, because once their egos became bigger, they egoed themselves out of any level of continuity or reprint ability. There is a reason why a lot of those Cyber Force issues and WildCATS issues took so long to get reprinted, because they incorporate so many other characters from the Image universe. And at that point, even people like Rob Liefeld, you sell off Youngblood, someone else owns Youngblood. What is Jim Lee to do about publishing Youngblood issue or WildCATS issue 4, where Youngblood is prominently there? I say just redraw it. You can do it. You're Jim Lee. Get someone else. You can get someone to redraw those, not even those panels. Digitize it, redraw the character, same pose, just redraw it. Word balloon it. I don't know why. If Dale Keown doesn't want to give the rights to Mark Silvestri to reprint Cyber Force issue 3, volume 2 issue 3, by the way, or is it volume 1 issue 3? Volume 1 issue 3. My apologies. Just redraw Pitt as a different character. It's digital. Just freaking do it. But no, for some reason, that's an impossible thought. Nobody actually wants to do it. And we get this lost opportunity also because we kind of know Erik Larsen is superior than this work. He's better than this work. You sitting down and regurgitating what comes to your mind immediately, and not having an editor to kind of check you time to time, it's apparent here. And it is Erik Larsen's ego that feels like he can just sit down, come up with anything, and have it be good enough to flow within the Jim Lee WildCATS run. It's not. It's pathetic, and I do feel like this issue exposes really what the capabilities of Erik Larsen are. And it makes us, again, on the flip side of that, it makes us in sorrow of seeing what Rob Liefeld did with Shadowhawk Zero. He did that so well, and it just gives us a lot of sorrow, because then Rob Liefeld comes off as someone with unrealized potential, and I think a lot of us could agree to that. AKAPAD here, WildCATS 14. It's a stinker. I don't even like bringing you an issue like this because it's just meaningless. It really is. But AKAPAD here, 90s comics. Subscribe, support, leave a comment. I absolutely love you guys. Cheers.